I was around 6 years old. I was at home, and we could hear a cow in the paddock across the creek mooing. It was very excessive mooing too, like a cow was grieving for its calf. Well, one morning my dad and I decided to go and investigate what all the commotion was about. I waited at the fence while my dad went to look, and he discovered something he did not expect. My dad called me over to come look. There was a calf laying on the ground, and it had two heads. The calf wasn't going to live. It was really sick, and the two heads was just horrifying. We went back over to the house, and my dad called my neighbour to tell him what he had just found. The neighbour was shocked and came straight over to where the calf was. My dad went back over to meet the neighbour to discuss what was going to happen with the calf. As it was dying, there was only one humane thing to do, and that was to euthanize it, which is what happened. It was sad, but it was freaky at the same time. For days afterwards, the mother of the calf bellowed day and night. It kept us awake a lot of the time. I think it took a week and a half for the cow to stop bellowing. I was about 10 years old, and I loved going for rides up the road from my house on my push bike. It was a warm spring morning during school holidays, and I decided to go for a ride. Halfway up the road, I started to smell something dead. It was pretty bad, and it was quite pungent. I wasn't 100% sure where the smell was coming from, but I couldn't stand the smell. I wondered why my dad hadn't said anything about it though. He wasn't home most of the day, so he probably didn't go for his morning walk because he went out early in the morning. I kept riding up the road and the smell was gone. Something back there had to be dead, but there was no roadkill on the side of the road. I decided to turn back, and when I got to that spot, the smell came back and it was making me feel sick. I held my breath for a good minute or so until I was nearly back home. When I got back home, I told my mum what I had discovered. She said it was a bit strange. She told me not to worry about it, but the next day, my dad had gone for his morning walk, and he came back and told us about the putrid smell up the road. I mentioned to him that I could smell it too from the day before when I went for my ride. A few days had passed and the smell was getting worse, and it was spreading. You could just start smelling it as you started walking up the road from the house now. My dad decided to investigate. He took his respirator mask with him and walked up the road and into the scrub. What he had found was unexpected and quite disturbing. It was really disgusting as well. There were 3 white mesh bags with a dead pig inside each bag dumped in the scrub. When he came back to the house and told us what the smell was, we all sat there wondering who would have done this and why they would have done it. My dad called the council and told them about the situation. They said they would have someone come and collect the bags and dispose of them. That afternoon, my mum could see something out the kitchen window. It was a ute stopped up the road from the house, near where the bags were found. It was there for about 5 minutes, and then it took off further up the road. My mum told my dad what she had just saw. Maybe it was someone from the council coming to pick up the bags, but my mum said the ute didn't look like a council vehicle. My dad then thought it was strange. About an hour later, the ute came back, but it went up the long driveway, up to the house in the valley. It was the neighbour who disposed of them. My dad decided to drive up the road to see if the bags were actually gone, and sure enough they were. He came back and called the council again and told them not to worry about coming out as someone had already disposed of the bags. For a while after that, we actually wondered whether the neighbour up in the valley had anything to do with the dead pigs in the first place, as she knew where they were. That seemed a bit suspicious. The main thing was they were gone and we didn't have to smell that filthy smell anymore. I was living with my partner at the time and his family in their house in the suburbs on the coast. We had our cats there with us, as well as the family cats, so there were 5 cats there in total. One night, my partner and I were out the back, on the back step, when we see movement out in the backyard. At first we thought it was just one of the cats wandering around, but it wasn't moving like a cat, and it was standing up. Next minute, the animal comes running towards us and stops and stands up on its hind legs. It was a possum. But there was something weird about this possum. It only had one eye. "Oh my God," my partner shrieked. I take it the possum was either in a fight or it was born like that. It looked scary like it did in the dull lighting of the back porch. My partner went inside and got an apple out of the fruit bowl and gave it to the possum. It came up to him and took it from him and ran off. The possum didn't come back again that night. The next night, the possum had returned and the cats were outside at the same time. The cats sat there staring at the possum, but then one of the cats decided to chase the possum and the possum ran up the tree, growling and snorting. I went inside and got another apple and handed it to the possum while it was up in the tree, and it took it from me and sat there and ate. For the next few weeks the possum kept returning, wanting to be fed fruit. My partner's stepdad told us we shouldn't have started feeding it because it's going to keep coming back, which it was. There was one night that my partner's younger sister was with the possum and she went to feed it and she went to pat it. But when she went to pat the possum, which is something me and my partner never tried to do, the possum scratched her hand, pretty deep too. She screamed and yelled, and the possum ran off. My partner's mum was fretting now. She decided to take the young girl to the hospital, just as a precaution. She was okay, and wasn't infected with anything from the possum. The possum had returned, but we weren't going near it or feeding it anymore. After a few days, it got the hint and didn't return. This encounter happened in 2017 when my now partner and I were travelling down to South Australia from New South Wales as we were relocating. We had driven to the city and seen my partner's dad, then stopped at one country town and stayed with my partner's friend, and we were now on our way to the next town that we were going to be staying at. We were in the location of the Riverina and we had crossed from New South Wales into Victoria. We still had an hour or two to go before we got to our next stop, which was my partner's auntie's house. We were in farmland and it was pretty dry as it was in the middle of summer. It was really hot too, and we were both getting pretty tired. We just wanted to hurry up and get to our next destination until something caught my partner's eye. In the distance, amongst the tall dry grass, was something black, and it was large. Babe, can you see that? Yeah, is that a cat? That's what I was thinking, a really big one. Could it be a panther? Or just a huge wild cat? Hopefully we can get a closer look. But by the time we got closer, it had disappeared into the scrub nearby. Damn it, it's gone. Oh well, at least we've seen it briefly. It would have been great to get a better look though, but I suppose they like to stay mysterious and hidden, so they don't get exploited by the public. When we got to my partner's auntie's house, we told her what we possibly had seen, and she said that there have been a few sightings of a big black cat around the place just of late, and that we may have just seen it ourselves. We actually thought that was pretty cool after being informed of that.